Welcome back, and thanks for joining me on another update for the 5 worm bins I have inside my home. Starting, of course, with my regular totes. The bins have recently been restarted, and I find that when you restart bins and it's been a couple weeks since you finished with the migration of the worms, there really isn't much to do beyond making sure the content level is at a good height and maintaining the moisture content inside of the bin. With these 2 bins, my regular totes, I do find that they tend to be more on the damp side than my other VermiBag bins. So my concern with these is more making sure I don't add too much water to them so that they get too muddy at the bottom, and also making sure that they're not too dry so that they don't dry out. But right now, as far as how the worms look, as far as how the content is at a good point. So there wasn't much to do with either one of these totes beyond put the food in, give them grit, and then just cover them back up and set them up for the next week. I notice that when I pocket feed, I get more worm balls that way than when I spread it up all over the top. And pocket feeding is just when you put the food specifically in one area and rotate it each week versus always just putting it on top. You can do either way, but if you're interested in seeing the worm balls, I find that I usually get that occurrence when you pocket feed. And that's what I'm doing right now, just putting the food up towards the top and only there, and then putting the grit down. Moving on to the VermiBag Totes. The totes are about 4 weeks ahead of the regular totes in terms of time from the harvest and migration the last time it occurred. And with these bins, my focus is making sure the content level is where I desire it, as well as moisture. Now with this versus the regular totes, these tend to be a bit drier than the regular totes, so I'm always trying to decide here whether to add water, as they need to be watered more frequently in my experience. I did pocket feed this bin as well, so the worms were focused in one area versus another. And when I turned over this soil, I do notice that you do need to dig to the bottom if you're someone that likes to fluff, because the content and material towards the bottom becomes very rich and seems to process a lot faster. And since I want everything to process at the same rate and not get too silty towards the bottom, I always dig all the way towards the bottom in both bins and bring them up. But I noted that my worms looked healthy, the castings were at a good point with their moisture, so in both of my tote bins I didn't add any water, I just fed them up and then covered them back up to set them up for the next week. I didn't record the video of the harvest, and if you wanted to watch a video on how I harvest, click the card up at the top of the screen. But the castings are great in their consistency, in their water content, and since I'm beginning to start gardening, it's perfect timing to have this material to use for when I create my starting mix for my seedlings. And lastly, it is the VermiBag Mini, which is my only flow-through system. As I remove the bubble wrap, you'll note that there is additional material at the top, and this is all the material that did not go through the coarse sifter when I went through the material. I put it on top of this bin as I find that it breaks down better and doesn't affect the bins as much. I tried to put it into my tote bins before and it just didn't work out, but that's what that extra material is. And even with the addition of the material, the worms are looking really good in this bin as well, staying towards the top. I note with this bin that it is a bit wetter, and that could be due to I feed it heavier than I do my other bins, but it is a bit wetter, so I'm definitely not going to be adding any additional moisture to this bin like the other ones for this week. I'm just going to feed it up and put the grit on and set it up. The castings in the bin look really good. The moisture level is down all the way where I put my hand, so I really don't have much concerns for these bins at this point in time. And once I finish mixing in the material with that, that's going to complete this video for this week. I do thank you for joining me for this video. Hope you've enjoyed the content, and thanks for watching.